USS Gerald R. Ford carrier could be vulnerable in combat until perform full ship trials and to conduct shock test. The USS Gerald R. Ford was commissioned in July 2017, the first U.S. aircraft carrier to enter service in after 8.5 years. The Navy used it to replace the aging USS Enterprise, which was in service from 1961 to early 2017, and return the U.S. Navy to an 11-carrier-strong fleet. Originally, the Gerald R. Ford was meant to deploy for the first time in 2020. Before the ship sails, however, the Operational Test and Evaluation branch of the DoD wants to conduct shock testing on the advanced carrier. Shock testing involves setting off underwater charges against the ship while the crew is on board to see how the ship reacts to attacks that are supposed to deal minimal damage. It's seen as valuable because it can expose the weaknesses in the design or construction of the vessel, but it will also stall the combat readiness of the ship. The U.S. Navy has requested the delay of planned shock testing on their newest aircraft carrier in order to fast-track the ship into combat duty. The Pentagon's testing arm has opposed the delay, warning the $12.9 billion carrier could be vulnerable in combat without shock test. Under political pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump, who vowed to construct the 12-carrier Navy we need on the deck of the Ford in March 2017, the Navy has sought to fast-track the carrier by omitting shock testing from their 2019 budget. Instead, the Navy argues, that testing should be pushed back and done alongside the next carrier meant to enter service, the USS John F. Kennedy, currently aimed at being commissioned in 2024. The decision ultimately comes down to Defense Secretary James Mattis. Operational Test and Evaluation Director Robert Beeler told Military.com that he was pushing hard for the shock testing to not be delayed. There are 4 major new systems on this aircraft carrier, he said. One for launching aircraft, the so-called catapult, one for landing aircraft, one for detecting incoming aircraft and missiles, and one for moving ordnance from the magazine to the weapons via elevators. I think we have to know if those systems continue to work in a combat environment, Beeler said. In a January memo to Mattis, Beeler wrote that the Gerald R. Ford required these tests to determine its combat efficacy. The CVN-78, Ford's naval designation, is making progress. However, reliability of the newly designed catapults, arresting gear, weapons elevators and radar, which are all critical for flight operations, have the potential to limit the Gerald R. Ford ability to generate sorties, he wrote. Additionally, the survivability of these newly designed systems remains unknown until the Gerald R. Ford undergoes full ship shock trials. The Gerald R. Ford replaces the Nimitz's steam-powered catapult with an electromagnetic one, allowing it to launch aircraft faster with the use of fewer crew. It also has an improved radar system and a more powerful nuclear reactor that doesn't require a supplementary steam engine, unlike its Nimitz-class predecessors. 2 sister ships of the same class as the Gerald R. Ford, the aforementioned John F. Kennedy and the 9th USS Enterprise, scheduled for a 2027 commissioning. A 4th Ford-class carrier is on order, but is yet to be named. Thus far, the U.S. has spent $45.7 billion on the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier program. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.